Okay, so back with a little more Johnny analysis, the whole DAKEN thing, mainly because, you're probably thinking, right? Like, Johnny seems so stupid. Like, he just seems like so gullible, so dumb. Like, why? Why is he acting like this? Are they just making this BS up? Like, are they just making this all just for story's sake where he's acting like this? Like, what is this? You know? But, like, in actuality, this is so very in character for him, actually. And this actually makes a lot of sense. And it's actually very canon for him to act like this. And I kind of wanted to show you that, like, I'm not making this bullcrap up either. Like, this is not my headcanons. Like, all the things I say about Johnny is not like my headcanons, It comes from the actual comics, okay? Like, it's steeped in truth in all of the canon. Kind of like the same way, like, I did all the interpretations here and stuff like that. Even just, like, with this stuff, it's very real, So, let's start off with, like, Johnny, he's putting so much faith in DAKEN right now, right? He really does believe DAKEN can change. That's what DAKEN's saying over here. Before I become someone I don't want to be, and right here too. Do you really? You can stand there and tell me you never wondered at your decisions? No regrets, no second guesses? Well, you must be more than human, okay? Directed at him, of course. Okay, so here's the thing. This stems from Reed. Why is Johnny like this with him? It comes from Reed. Okay, this comes from Reed. Okay, Johnny has so much faith in DAKEN because Reed has so much faith in Johnny. Okay, Reed puts, going all the way back to the Stand days. Okay, from the beginning, Reed puts so much faith in Johnny. Like, Reed has a soft spot for him. Okay, he's watched him grow. Okay, he showered him with his own millions, the vacations, the cars, the clothes. Like that Johnny Stingray. Come on, Reed bought that. We all know that. Okay, Reed bought that. Look, I never knew my father. Well, Johnny never knew his father either. Okay, Johnny did not know his dad. Okay. The dad was, like, gone, like, probably by the time he was 6 or 7, and Sue was kind of taking care of him, right? And I will say Johnny and Sue, I think, grew up pretty rich. Their dad was, like, a surgeon, so they grew up with money, and then the mom died, I think a car crash or something, and then the dad got so stupid. He started, like, doing things with, like, gambling, getting shark loans and stuff like that, and they'll come in for him. And then, like, the dad, like, basically, like, ended up getting arrested. But Sue told Johnny that the dad died. She was stupid a little bit. But, so Johnny didn't know his dad. And, give me a break. So Johnny never knew his dad, okay? And they grew up with money, but I don't think Johnny even remembers that because clearly the dad was in debt. So they didn't have money anymore by the time he could, like, think, Johnny doesn't even remember the mom, actually. She died when he was so young. So DAKEN's saying this. I never knew my father. Well, him too. So the dad was gone. They didn't really have much money. Sue met Reed. Reed was Mr. Moneybags. Reed came in with the millions. He was Mr. Millionaire. Sue had the friggin' jackpot, this bitch. The millionaire. He came in. If you ever read Stan's book, vacation, clothes. This one was going shopping all the time. Vacation and clothes. That was a thing. It was all on Reed. Okay? Even the whole Baxter building and stuff, that was Reed's. Everything that was the FFs comes from Reed first. The whole Baxter building, the whole, like, upper 5 floor. This mofo, he was so rich. He already had all that. He already had in the lab. That's friggin' idiots. He was so rich. He had it first. So, all the cars. It wasn't actually said that Reed bought these. It was so obvious, though. They ain't had money. These two would not have money. I don't know about Ben. But those two did not have money. So basically, Reed stepped in and took care of them. And so he showered Johnny with all of his millions, you know, the vacations. They went on vacations, you know, and the early ones, Stan would have them go on vacations. You know, Johnny had his Stingray, you know, and then all the clothes, you know. So Reed took care of them, you know. Reed puts a lot of faith in Johnny, you know. He's the youngest member. But Johnny is very much a product of Reed's mistakes. Okay, we're talking about like the cosmic rays. Okay, like Reed knows like how Johnny is today, you know, the whole playboy thing. He doesn't take things serious and stuff. I mean, that's very him still, you know, even though sometimes his writers being lazy or whatever, that's still very him, you know. And this is all a product of Reed's mistakes, right? Reed knows his faults in all of this on some level. Okay. He feels a lot of guilt. A lot of guilt, actually. Like Ben isn't the only one he feels guilt over. Okay, he's not the only one. Okay, he feels guilt for taking away like all of everyone's humanity. Okay, he knows once those cosmic rays hit them, they came back to Earth or whatever. Well, I don't think they ever left Earth. I don't remember. You know, but he knew they were never going to have a normal life again. Okay, and so he couldn't give them a normal life anymore, but he could give them something else. He can give them an extraordinary life, okay? And he did this by making them celebrities, right? He made them special in a different way, right? So that same day the cosmic rays hit them was the same day they became famous, okay? I'm not making this up either. This was also in, I know some of it was also in Stan's, but I know like a lot of them saying too was also in, I think it's Wade's run. I want to say Wade's run, but don't quote me on that. Okay, but I'm not making that up where it's like, oh, I'm not like making a BS here right now, being like, oh, my interpretation is, no, literally, he said that. He said that, you know, I took away them having a normal life, so I gave them, you know, the next best thing, which is an extraordinary life. I gave them fame, a celebrity, you know. I gave them things not everybody has, you know. I'm not making this up. This is real. Okay. So this fame, this celebrity stuff, right? So much of Johnny's flaws and insecurities stem from that, right? Like, you got that cocky attitude. And that comes from the fame, okay? You know, Johnny, he's always questioning his worthiness, you know, if not for his powers. You know, like, who would he be if not the famous Human Torch? You know, and that's a very valid question for him, you know. His anger, you know, he used to have a lot of that back in the Stan days, you know. The temper tantrums. He used to burn the hell out of Reed all the time. You know, Johnny's depression, you know, he's a very depressed character, you know. Absolutely. More than Peter, you know. This man had decades of like depression and, you know, years and within years of publication. I'm not lying. I'm not making this up, right? He has a lot of depression because his super heroics, you know, they complicate his love life. You know, love is not easy for Johnny. It's not easy for him to come by. It's not easy for him to hold on to, you know. And like his loneliness, you know, that comes from him being extraordinary. And like, let's be real, he's pretty unrelatable. Even in his world of our universe, he's pretty unrelatable because, you know, even in the world of celebrities, you know. So, you know, but, so here's Reed, you know. Reed feels the guilt too. I'm worried about Johnny, you know, he feels it too, you know. Reed, he's full of guilt, this man. He's steeped in the guilt. And Reed, you know, Even though he has a lot of guilt and stuff, he actually never takes an active role in consoling Johnny. Like never. Not here. Not in any of the comics, like, ever. Like, look. This bowl. Let me find it. Oh, shit. Where is it? Okay, look. This is Ben's attempt at, like, consoling Johnny a little bit, you know. This is it, you know. Ben and Johnny, they always have this rapport. They don't need to talk much. They've always been like this, you know. This is, like, his way of consoling him a little, you know. Pointing it out. It doesn't have to be sappy. They don't need all that. That's what Ben and Johnny. They don't need all the sappy BS, you know. All they need is each other's presence. Sometimes that's just enough. That's very them. But, like, here's Sue. Consoling her brother. You don't see Reed doesn't talk to Johnny almost at all. Look, if you go through all of this, at what point does Reed even speak to Johnny? Almost never. You know, he does not take an active role in consoling him, literally ever. You know, Reed knows what he's good at, you know, and it's not making Johnny feel better. That role is left to Sue and Ben. They do it well. I just showed you, you know. But Reed, you know, he offers his belief, you know, that Johnny can do better and be better, you know. He lets himself, you know, in other comics, in other FF comics, you know, he lets himself be that person Johnny wants to impress, you know. Because Johnny needs that in his life. It doesn't matter how many times Johnny messes up. And I'm not making this up, okay? This comes from the Fantastic Four books, okay? It does not matter how many times Johnny messes up. Reed will give him a second chance, okay? Reed will give him, because he always does. He gives him infinity second chances, always. You know? Always.